NF Acous, a rebranding of the NF Audio, a very well-known brand in the audio space, has just released the NM20. This is the very first IM that they released under the name of NF Acous. So, how does this $120 single lead IM perform, can it live to the legacy that they have established with NF Audio? So, about NF Acous, I think if you guys are familiar with NF Audio, you should still be familiar with what the kind of stuff that they're releasing. But if you're not, NF Acous is a brand that specializes in monitoring and creating audiophile products. If you've seen a lot of bands, especially in the domestic Chinese scene and even some international scene, you're probably going to see an NF Acous IM in their ear. And they've recently just rebranded from NF Audio to NF Acous, and honestly, I really like what they did with this rebranding. I asked why they wanted to do a rebranding, and they wanted to do a fresh start, and I would argue this is indeed a very, very good start to a very hopefully prosperous career or prosperous brand that they will be coming up with in the near future with their products. But for now, let's focus on the product at hand, which is the NM20. This is a $120 single DDIM featuring their MCL-100 driver that is an upgrade from their previous NM2 driver, which is the MCL10. And this is going to be a very, very interesting review because this is basically a new brand with a old vision coming from their previous brands. So let's see. Let's start with the unboxing experience, which is honestly really nice. I really, really love the marketing of NF Acous, and I'm gonna release a written review along with this one, and I talked about in depth why I really like their branding. I'm gonna not talk about it as much here, but it just looks really good, really appealing, and it fits the target market that they're trying to approach, and that's what I really, really love about it. And I would say in terms of inclusions, they have definitely improved from their previous IEMs, particularly the NA2 and the NM2 series. They finally included a decent case that isn't the weird puck donut macaroon looking thing that could barely fit an IEM. This time around, it is far larger, far more spacious, and I really love the red accent. I really, really, really like how that looks. And additionally, MS42 ear tips. I really, really like this ear tips too. It's a little bit stubby, so not for short IEMs or short nozzled IEMs, but for longer nozzled IEMs. The shape of this thing, the texture, the fit, and the seal is just absolutely fantastic. Although I would say that this is an ear tip that would fit brighter IEMs more. Thankfully, the NM20 is one of those, but it is one that I would pair with something that is already existingly a little bit on the bright side. So that's my little review for the MS42 ear tips. Followed by that, let's finally talk about the earpieces themselves. And as a kind of callback to the old NM2 IEMs, this is featuring a similar pink that was a very eye-catching and vibrant color back in the day, but they went for something a little bit more pastel, but still equally very attractive here. And just like the NM2, the focus here is lightweight and comfort. And if you're focusing just on those two factors, this is probably one of the best fitting IEMs that you can find. It is so comfortable in the ear and just such a nice IEM to wear when you're just walking around. And I guess it makes sense because this is made for musicians. It's the M in NM stands for musician series, or I guess it kind of stands for that, but that makes it a very solid set for people who just want a very comfortable fitting IEM, preferably for musicians who go up on stage and walk around and move around and do crazy headbangs and stuff like that, because this thing is going to fill your duties. Just insanely comfortable IEM. The cable is not that same, unfortunately. I think that the cable can still be improved. This is very similar to the same really not that good braided, cheap feeling braid cable from the older NM series, NA series of IEMs. But you know what, it's fine. I just do hope that they end up releasing better cables with future IEMs. So now that we have that out of the way, let's finally talk about the sound, which is very bright. Um, it is very, very bright. Now, not even an understatement. This IM is unadulteratedly for treble heads and really not much for anyone else or just people who like a lot of like treble and stuff like that. And I honestly think that that's the thing that makes the NM20 such a special IM in this price range. Now let's take a look at the frequency response, and yep, it looks like that. Now, don't let that scare you. Okay, maybe a little bit. Maybe let that scare you a little bit. But it is a very specialized tuned IEM with a very strong emphasis in the treble, and this bass shelf that looks a little bit too big actually does a lot to balance out the energy in the treble, so it gives it that punchiness, that impact, that really nicely pairs with the high treble emphasis of the NM20, and the air region is definitely pretty good. Now, let's talk about my listening impressions, because there's one word that I really think that summarizes the NM20, and that's treble. Okay, fine. Like, I know I've been talking about the treble headness of this IEM, but I genuinely think that this IEM is one of the most specialized IEMs in that regard. Because as much as I wanted to listen to every single genre with this IEM, I just couldn't. There were specific genres that were just completely unlistenable because of that treble, at least if I don't go super low volume. But there are genres that really just shine with this, like instrumentals, orchestras, Kenny G, Samara Joy, Leve, people with like warmer, thicker vocals. This is able to present them in a very energetic and very sparkly way, and I think that that is what makes the NM20 such a really special IEM. I mentioned that earlier, because not a lot of IEMs in this price range do this kind of specialized, bright, V-shaped sound signature. Everyone's trying to be neutral. Everyone's trying to be meta, but NF Acous still keeps that like very bright, vocal, energetic DNA that they've had in their older sets. But I'm definitely not gonna deny that this is an IEM that not everyone will like, and I would say that like probably 70% of people wouldn't like, and only people who love treble like me would like find a way to really enjoy this IEM. But thankfully, it is redeemed by a very superb technical ability, as you might expect, and that is probably also because of just the quality of the MC2L or MCL. I think it's MC2L, so I apologize for my wrong information earlier, spreading misinformation, but I think that the MC2L 100 driver is probably a very high potential driver, because in my experience, I tried EQing with this, and it is just crazy good. It responds to EQ, one of the best in response to EQ that I've heard in the sub 150, because a lot of them start to distort, or some of them barely make a change, but the NM20 has such a very distinct level of change without changing the like overall quality of the driver itself. It doesn't feel like it's getting forced into any corner when you EQ it. It just sounds perfectly right. So now that I've shared my listening impressions, let's finally talk about some comparisons, which I'll give it to you, Comparison Obi. Compared to the High-B Yacht 10, the Yacht 10 is a somewhat milder version of the NM20 with a similar peak in the treble and clean bass. The main difference being the V-shape being more considerably exaggerated on the NM20. The NM20 is far more detailed, energetic, and engaging sounding set between the two, but the Yacht 10 has a more versatile tuning and stronger physicality in the sound. The choice comes down to whether you want something more detailed in the treble or more detailed in the bass. Compared to the Lecture D13, the D13 has a far more detailed bass than the NM20, but the latter has a far more resolving sound. Both sets are arguably tonally flawed in their own way, but the NM20 has a raw resolving ability and a really high quality driver to make up for it. The D13's strongest feature is its bass, and it doesn't really have much to redeem for it outside of that. Compared to the SIMGOT EA500LM, it is still the single DD standard for raw technicalities under $100, and yet still finds a way to be a more complete sound compared to the $120 NM20. Granted, the NM20 has a more detailed and snappier sound, however the EA500LM's tuning is far safer and more versatile in terms of tuning. The overall presentation of the LM is also cleaner compared to the NM20, but the NM20 will serve treble heads a little bit better. And finally, compared to its older, more expensive sibling, the NF Acous NM2 Plus, the NM2 Plus has a leaner, more vocal forward, but surprisingly less refined sound compared to the NM20. The NM20 might seem considerably more harsher than the NM2 Plus graph-wise, but the driver used on the NM20 ensures a more resolving and more capable sound compared to its older sibling. However, the tonality and tuning of the NM20 is still more versatile due to the less aggressive treble and more linear mids. If you wanted a more fun and energetic sounding set, go for the NM20, but if you want something more reference tuning, go for the NM2 Plus. Now to finally conclude, the NM20 is by far the most specialized IEM that I've listened to in a very, very long time. And this goes both ways, because on one end, the treble is genuinely magical, and the way that it handles even the low frequency sounds is just feels so clean, so smooth, but at the same time very impactful. However, that smoothness and impact can also be its, I guess, detriment, because the treble is nowhere near smooth and the impact can be a little bit too much, just borderline sibilant, and I genuinely mean it this time. It's genuinely sibilant, but like I said, it's what makes this IEM special. Every other IEM nowadays does something a bit normal, something about safe, but NF Acous, the NM20, not at all. It does it such a nice and energetic way of presenting music that I would want to pick up whenever I'm listening to the aforementioned instrumental genres. And that driver, very, very competitive driver, able to compete with even more expensive IEMs, but definitely something that bottlenecks it is its tuning. But arguably, if you do look for, or if you want to look for a brighter leaning IEM, then this is a pretty good IEM for you. Well, now let's finally talk about the scoring, and the score of the overall IEM is 4.85 and an enjoyment of 4. Both of them are out of 10, by the way. So, unfortunately, not enough to be BAM-OB approved, but hey, it's still a very specialized IEM and one that I would recommend with very, very, very specific caveats. So, thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, consider giving me a like, subscribe if you enjoy or want to see more of my content, consider checking out the Discord, check out Audio Notions, check out my socials, and with that, OB Audio, out.